Evolutionary Underground episode 38 coming your way. Today we're talking about best orals for powerlifting with Geneza Pharma. So this is a really, really good one. You guys out there are gonna want to pay close attention to this episode. We got Mobster with me, and Mobster, he is an absolute ox, and he is doing some crazy amount of weight. You can check out his logs on the forums. He is pushing some sick weights. He's basically doing enough to move a car. So you're gonna want to listen closely on this one if you're interested in powerlifting. And he loves his orals, and he's gonna give you some tips and tricks when it comes to powerlifting. Some of his secrets and advice. We're going to talk about positive and negatives of using orals. We're going to talk about solo oral options from Geneza Pharma. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about stacking oral options from Geneza Pharma. And we're going to talk about why Geneza Pharma has been a trusted brand for many, many years and why they are one of the top selling brands in the world. So this is going to be a really good one. So let's get into powerlifting secrets. So I first got into powerlifting as a teenager, and I really, really loved it. Powerlifting is different. There's a different technique when it comes to powerlifting. There's a different mindset when it comes to powerlifting. And I love powerlifting for many, many years. I had to get away from it in my mid 30s because of injuries, and I just got tired of being in pain all the time. So I kind of transitioned away to more athletics, being healthy, looking good, having abs and all that stuff. And then now I'm kind of just maintaining and I'm keeping things, I'm pushing my body a lot of ways. Yesterday, I actually hit a new personal record over the last 5 years when it comes to strength training. But obviously, it's still well short of where I was in my mid 30s. But Mobster, on the other hand, he's still pushing. He's almost at 60 and he's still pushing personal records and heavy ass weights. So really, it's a gem to be able to talk to Mobster about it. So I'm going to give Mobster, come on here and give you the floor. Talk about powerlifting secrets before people should even look at using anabolic steroids. What are some tips and tricks that you can advise people where they can get the most out of their strength?
Yeah, I mean, Steve, just to be clear, the power lifts, for those people that don't know, but I suspect most of the audience will, are quite simply the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And as Steve says, I will be 60 in just over 5 weeks' time, Steve, fuck's sake. And I've actually hit a PB bench this year, just, I'm going to say 2 months or so ago, with 420 pounds, 200 kilos, sorry, 440 pounds. What am I talking about? 200 kilograms for the first time in my life. And again, that'll be at 59 years of age. And I even just recently watched a powerlifting documentary. So listen, nearly every single person listening to the show that's ever been to the gym has done at least or been asked at least about their bench press. Now, secret, Steve, and Steve and I talked about this briefly in the pre-show, right? So there's an issue from time to time of associating the fact that you're going to compete in powerlifting or you're going to do the powerlifting type lifts. You're going to do a strength program on one of those lifts or all three of the lifts. And sometimes what happens, and this is a mistake, so here's the secret, here's the cheat, if you like. Sometimes what happens is people will start a cycle at the same time, and I say a cycle of PEDs, orals, as we're talking about today, but orals and injectables as an option, and do that at the same time as they start the strength cycle, the building up of their strength, of their power to compete or to do one of these lifts to see just how goddamn good they are. And this is a mistake. Here's what I've done, and I believe Steve's done the same thing. It's one of those things you learn the hard way. So a good strength program can easily be, Steve, 3 months, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 14 weeks, 20 weeks. And the trick, so to speak, and I've learned this over time, is you look at what you've done in the past. You knock a few percent off the top of that, let's say 20%. So you're down to 80% of what you did before. And let's say, for argument's sake, to keep it nice and simple, I'm going to use kilos, which is 100 kilograms or 220 pounds, bench press. And so your starting point would be 80 kilos. And this would be, let's say, for argument's sake, Steve, 16 weeks out. So for the first 8 weeks of that 16-week training cycle, You build up your strength, you progress through the program, and there's a bunch of places online where you can find this kind of program to give you an idea of how this stuff's done, whether it's 3x3 or 5x5 or whatever you're doing. But your first 8 weeks, the secret part is no PEDs. You take your supplements, you're hitting your protein numbers, you're making sure your recovery is good. And not only that, Steve, I would argue that the first 8 weeks should be relatively easy in your comfort zone. It's only going to last 4, 5, 6 weeks of any big program that should real feel like proper hard work. So your first 8 weeks, no PEDs. And to be arguable, Steve, I'd actually say you don't need any assistance, performance enhancement for those first 8 weeks because you still should be, as I've already said, in your comfort zone. It's the last 4, 6, 8 weeks. Now that would come down to your preference of using oral specifically. If it's an oral only cycle, it would probably stretch out to 6 or 8 weeks. It's an oral and injectable cycle. And that's where we start to bring in the PEDs. Now, again, your choice of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks. My choice has always been between the 4 and 8 weeks. Certainly 8 weeks in the past. Most recently, Steve, I think it did 8 weeks, but prior to the previous 2 cycles have only been 4 weeks. And again, I'm aware of where I am in my strength. I know where my peak is and so on and so forth. And again, those last 4 weeks, 100% for most people, the last 4 weeks, is where it's goddamn brutal, where the numbers are 90 or 95% of your 1 rep max. So you're real close to those 2 plates aside, using the example I gave earlier on, the 100 kilograms, the 220 pounds, and you should be pushing 95 kilos, which is 210 pounds. You should be there or thereabouts, and every single one of those single, doubles, triples, whatever kind of set program you've got should feel fucking hard as fuck. They really should, because this is how you push your body with PED support into the new place. And the new place, in my mind, Steve, would be somewhere between 105 or 110 kilos. To give you an example, 110 kilograms is 242 pounds. And remember, your old PB, and this is just using bench press as an example, was 220. And the program that I've laid out, just very simply, very briefly, with performance enhancement, is giving you a 22 pound. That's a nice big number, Steve. If you're pressing 300 pounds or 315, you're now looking at 350, 360. If you're pressing close to 400 pounds, as I was, you're looking at 440 pounds, as I recently achieved. And that is a massive, I mean, just those are all 10%, Steve. Those are massive numbers. And in fact, a video I watched some weeks ago with Larry Wills et al., 3 or 4 of them, including Larry, were all benching 600 plus. One of the fellas, Josh Baker, was well over 700 pounds. And they were looking at 15 pounds per year once they got to a certain level as a gain. I'm talking about 22 pounds, especially for you younger guys that are not up to 3 plates yet. But even at 3 plates, you're looking at very close to 350 pounds, Steve. And trust me, that kind of stuff is meat on your chest. That is immense power. The percentage of people that are only benching 2 plates in the gym is actually kind of small. And that's in terms of the whole world. So the idea that you could add with an oral cycle, training for 16 weeks, that might seem like a long time to you youngsters, but do that every year. And you'll go from almost a small group to begin with, Steve, into an elite group. The number of people you will see in the gym, this is just bench press again, pushing 3 plates is actually kind of small. The number that's doing 2 plates properly is actually kind of small. Take 100 gym users, there's only 5 of them, 5%. So in my gym, that would be, say, 15 or 20 individuals that are doing 2 plates properly. Maybe 10, 15 individuals that are doing 2.5 plates. And then the 3 plate individuals, I know by name, Steve. I know the names of every single person, including myself, in my local gym that's pressing 4 plates. So the idea that you could do that as a strength program, and again, isn't this specifically, even if you're an elite lifter and you're looking for 2,000 pounds plus total, as you might have been when you were, say, Steve's age earlier on, 30 years of age. Even now, Steve, this is how fucked up this shit is. And just to give you an example of where I'm coming from, as a powerlifting athlete or strength athlete myself, if I competed in the 50 to 59 class, or even the 60 to 69 class, as a Masters, I think a Masters M3, With sleeves, my bench would be the top 10 in the country across all the European, all the British federations. This is fucked up, Steve, to say the least. And I can't believe that I've got that kind of level of strength. But some of that's come from sensible use of training principles, sensible use of PEDs, including, as Steve says, oils, and so on and so forth. So, yes, Steve, is there any questions you have about powerlifting or power training before we move on?
Tell the guys out there, you mentioned in your log you were doing over 1,300 pounds. Talk about how much you were able to do to give them an idea of how strong you are.
Yeah. So when the guys check out my log on the forums, and I've got probably one of the most looked at log on the forums in terms of just the sheer numbers of views and people coming on and whatever else. And sometimes they'll see certain numbers on certain machines that I'm doing that absolutely blows people's minds. On my desktop right now, Steve, is a photograph that I've shared in my log on the forums. And this is from a few months ago when my buddy and I were training legs here. So I've got what's called a power squat machine. I've got a lever squat machine. I've got an isolever leg press and a leg press. And I put the numbers on there, Steve, and even on other forums, UK forums that I still just post my log on, it blows their fucking mind. And I've got to be honest, I tend not to think of it in that way myself because otherwise I think I'll be scared of doing it. But just to give you an example, yesterday was in excess of 530 kilos, which I believe off the top of my head is close to 1,200 pounds on the power squat machine. And in fact, my best is 625 or 635 kilograms. I'm very, very close to doing 400 kilograms, which is 880 pounds on my lever squat machine. And potentially this year, I might do that for reps. And in the gym, and one of the photographs I put up a few months ago, again, the guys thought was super hardcore. It was color selected black and white. So it's got a few colors in it that are right in your face. And I'm doing well over 600 pounds on that. And in fact, my PB, my best, and I have posted photographs of that as well, on my Hatfield squat, which is a safety squat bar, but you hold the frame and you squat down to a bench and you come back up. That's the way that I do it. And I've actually done 800 pounds. And I think the fucked up thing about that is because of the internet, I could probably find people that could do more, but I can't find anybody my age doing more. And one of the things that's really crazy, and it's even crazy for me, Steve, is when I was first passionate enough about training to get into what was going on and be serious about it and whatever else, I don't think I even dreamt of the numbers that I'm doing. I might have dreamed of being Mr. Olympia physique. I might have dreamed of being strong, but I didn't think I had 1,100 pound power squat machine squat workouts and 15 and 1,600 pound leg presses or an 800 pound Hatfield squat. I don't even think I knew what Hatfield squat, but the idea of putting 800 pounds on, just standing up from the hooks and stepping back is going to leave a bruise on your neck, even with the pads that come with the safety squat bar. But I try not to think about how crazy it is. I let other people do that. I think for me, I have to have that drive, the hunger to do more or not be satisfied with what I'm doing currently in order for me to perform at that level and continue to want to perform at that level. I think the thing that's really fucked up about it, Steve, is that generally in society, we tend not to think of being 60 or nearly 60 years of age and doing crazy fucked up shit. And the number of people that is doing that kind of stuff is like 3, 4 in the fucking world. You'll find a 95-year-old man that's running sprints and he's getting decent times, but it's like 1 in 8 billion. So I tend not to think like that. But when other people see it and they realize how long I've been training and they realize my age, I think it kind of blows their minds. And you know, I know world-class strength athletes that turn around and say, "Fucking hell, Steve, you're an inspiration." A buddy of mine just this weekend was 900 and something kilograms, just short of 1,000 kilos, which is 2,200 total with nothing but knee sleeves, and did a record briefly. Someone beat him a 5 minutes later squat, 250 kilo bench, so 550 pound bench press, and somewhere close to an 800 pound deadlift just this weekend. And he calls me an inspiration. So yeah, it's kind of fucked up, but it does mean because I've competed my niche, which is grip strength, to the very highest level, certainly in the past, around circa 2010 at my best. And some of the records, the guys have asked me on the forums about this before. Some of my records will never be beaten because the rules have been changed. but equally, some of the records are still valid. And that is when I haven't seriously competed probably for 6 or 7 years. So again, it's again, because I'm a hungry, get that fucking shit done, want to beat my old records kind of wanker that I am. I tend not to sit too much on my laurels. But when you look back and you look at being analytical, you go, that motherfucker still is doing crazy fucked up shit, and he's done some absolutely crazy world-class stuff in the past. And I get
Yeah.
recognized for it again by other strength athletes. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
So you know, let me do a couple things. We don't have much time. We'll definitely talk about it in the future, but let me tell you guys something out there. Um, you know, Mobster strategy, couple things. He has a great gym that he goes to. That's what you need. You need a great gym. All right.
Yeah.
I talked about Planet Fitness. I go and work out at Planet Fitness. I get in as a guest. Nothing wrong with Planet Fitness. I actually like Planet Fitness a lot. Okay. They have really good equipment. It's brand new. The facilities are clean. They have a big staff. I mean, they're great customer service and everything. The thing about it is you can't power lift the way Mobster does in there. So what you got to do, if you do have Planet Fitness, for example, you can still get away with it, but you're going to have to get some stuff at home. You're going to have to get a squat rack at home. You're going to have to get a bench press at home. You're going to have to get a mat at home where you do cleans and clean and jerks and these powerlifting techniques that will make you stronger. That's what you got to do. So it's possible. But at the end of the day, there's not many. The Mobster's gym's important. Mobster's drive is important. Mobster, and then using these oral steroids that we're going to talk about is important. It really works. And weight training works. In my 30s at my peak, when I was using these oral steroids and I was using Trend with them, which we're going to talk about, I remember I was opening a jar and of pineapple juice because I had gone fishing. I got some fish. I was going to make some fish and mix it with the pineapple juice. I went to open the pineapple juice jar and the entire thing just exploded in my hand just from opening it. And I called on my girlfriend. I'm like, you got to stop by the grocery store on your way home and get pineapple juice. Of course, she was pissed off at me, and I would break shit just fucking randomly. I'd be breaking shit. That's how strong the combination of using these Geneza Pharma steroids, weight training, as Mobster says, having.
Yeah. I'm breaking machines, Steve. I'm breaking.
Yeah. I'm sure the people at your gym hate you because you load up all these plates on there. You bend the bars and all this stuff. And look, at the end of the day, this shit works. And this
I'm
shit
actually
does make
really,
you
really
strong.
lucky, Steve. I'm lucky because my local gym is hardcore. But as Steve knows, my home gym is hardcore. And I'm actually bending stuff in my own gym.
Yes.
So it's me that's got
I
to
think
pay
it's
for it.
important to have both. I used to have a home
Yeah.
gym and I'd have the gym because at the gym they get pissed off if you drop the weight or anything. But it's like sometimes you got to drop the weight. Sometimes you're going so heavy that it's safer to just let the weight go and drop. So if you're doing it at home, drop the weight. I put a fucking hole in my wall at home, whatever. But if you put a hole in the gym, they'll fucking kick you out. You know what I'm saying?
I'm lucky with my local gym, Steve, because I've donated equipment and I've actually said this, not just at my local gym. I'm fortunately in a position where this is applicable. If I break it, I replace it. If I break or snap a cable, I replace it. If I bend a bar, I'll replace it. I can do that, but the relationship I have is really, really good. Not every gym is like that. So you might be hard pushed to find yourself a really good powerlifting gym or a gym that allows you to do these things or a group of guys that you can go and train with or whatever. In fact, one of the really great suggestions is find people of a like mind, get a garage or double garage, especially if you live in the States, and put the kit in between the lot of you, and you can end up with a really, really kick-ass hardcore gym. You might be the only person that ends up using it. Not everybody's going to have the passion that you will have, but you can end up. I've seen world-class athletes come out of garages in the States.
Absolutely.
In fact, Westside Barber was a double garage before it expanded. So absolutely, you can do stuff like that. Let's get in, Steve, to the oral
so why don't you
steroids.
touch on positive. Let's get into positive and negatives of using oral. So why don't you touch on that first?
Right. So oral steroids, which is what we're discussing today for the main part of it, we will talk about stacking them with injectables, if only briefly. The obvious issues with oral steroids, some have had their own specifics, and including the ones we're going to discuss, will have their own specific positive and negatives. And I'll do very, very quickly, just as an example. We'll discuss it in a minute, but I'll make sure that you're aware of why a positive can also be a negative and vice versa when we're discussing each steroid. But the main issue with oral steroids, and especially if you run them for longer periods of time, and arguably if you run them solo, is that most of them are treated in such a way, methylated, Steve, as you know, for the whole business of the first pass through the liver. And in order to do what you want to do in order to be crazy, crazy strong, even just to get a 10% increase year on year up to crazy numbers. If you was doing that consistently with orals, the risk factor for orals per milligram versus injectable per milligram is higher. And it's literally because of how your body needs to treat, or the steroids have been treated to get into your body, to get into your system, and to be useful in a particular way. And an obvious side effect, and I'll just touch on one, but this will, again, when we talk about individual steroids, I do that as well, is water retention from some steroids. And some of that is actually caused by the steroid itself, and some specifically by how the steroid's been treated. And Steve, discuss specifically, you're better at this than I am, the whole business of the first pass for the liver and the methylation of the steroid.
So some of the orals we're going to talk about today are 17 alpha alkylated, and that's important because it allows them not to be destroyed by the liver. So it's going to be a pass through the liver. It's going to strain the liver. And really, in your body, like I'll give you an example, an alcoholic who's drinking alcohol every day they're straining your liver. The liver is very important. It's a very resilient organ, but it's also a very important organ because if you strain the liver too much, you'll end up with side effects. Fatigue is a common side effect. And we see people, a lot of people out there, they have bad livers and they go through life like zombies. They're fatigued all day. They have no energy. So that really sucks. If you want to be a prime athlete, the way Mobster is even to this day, and the way he's been over the past 40, 50 years, the way I've been over the past 20 years, 25 years, is you want to have energy throughout the day. You're not going to be able to get in the best workout. You're not going to be able to think clearly. So very, very important that you protect your liver and you be aware when you're using these oral steroids that they do hit your liver, but that's okay because you're running them, as Mobster said in the first segment, you're running them, let's say 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So there's a way to run them where the adverse effects to the liver are minimal. And obviously you don't want to use them with strong prescription or over-the-counter drugs that are also liver toxic, like aspirin, for example. Or you don't want to use them with alcohol. You shouldn't be drinking alcohol anyway. Alcohol has no purpose. Fermented, like things like beer that are fermented, are not good for you, regardless. Not even if you take out the alcohol, fermented drinks, you should treat them like a beverage, but they're not going to have a benefit to you. They can upset your stomach a lot. And a lot of people are intolerant to fermented drinks in the first place. So in other words, if you drink a beer and then go try to work out, it's not going to go well for you. You're not going to be able to do hack squats of 800 plus pounds after drinking a couple beers and then going to the gym. There's a reason for that. You're just making shit harder on yourself. So you want to make sure with these orals, you hit them, you run them correctly, and then you come off for a long period of time, and then you won't have to worry about liver issues. You also want to make sure you run your liver support supplements, which are very, and of course you can come on the forum and learn more about liver support supplements and listen to our other podcasts where we talk about liver support supplements. So that's
one more thing, Steve, and this is very true in this day and age compared to where it might have been 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Every single, I'd actually say, athlete, full stop, never mind strength athlete, but obviously my experiences is specific to strength. Every single strength athlete that you guys might know of, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's any other social media, and especially if you're seeing them on ESPN and the like, right, might come across occasionally in a kind of dumbass kind of way. But trust me, every single modern athlete is almost a pseudo semi kind of expert when it comes to nutrition. Some of them are absolutely amazing when it comes specifically to recovery and rehab. And they're probably mentally focused on what they're doing, Steve. So they might be kind of a bit silly with the computers and a bit daft with DIY around the house. And I probably included myself there, but when it comes to the strength stuff, they've gone out of their way to kind of become experts. So when Steve talks about what he just talked about, you're looking at stuff like, did I eat correctly yesterday? Did I rehab after training? Am I the better athlete today because of all the things I've done in the last 24 hours? And especially when it coming close to competition, they will be only in the food they know that doesn't give any problems. They won't be sleeping for a couple of hours. They'll be trying to get as much rest as possible. Like Steve said, will not deliberately be dehydrated and or stressing their organs with recreationals or drugs or a prescription medication or whatever else. They'll be doing the least of any of the things that they have to do, and it might include prescription medication, as well as not doing crazy shit. And as one of the notes I made while Steve was talking, and this is just as an analogy again for how you could use oral steroids. If they do use higher doses, and I do occasionally see higher doses than perhaps me and Steve might talk about that they use, it's normally for a shorter period of time. So, for example, I might say 30 to 50 milligrams a D-bol, Steve. But occasionally, these are really crazy, pushing it out there kind of guys might go 100 milligrams, but it won't be for 16 weeks. It'll be for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and especially in approach to a competition. So they're very analytical with their training logs, with their diaries, with the stuff that we encourage on the forums, in making sure that they are peaking almost in the same way as a bodybuilder does for when they go on stage for the event, for the athletic event, for the strength event, for powerlifting. And especially, this is especially true, Steve, if they compete in a weight class. I'm too fucking heavy. So I would be, whatever weight class there is, I'll be outside that weight class, even now. But for the most part, if, for example, 100 kilos, 220-pound athlete, they have to hit a weight. So those guys are even more analytical than I would need to be, because I haven't got to worry about how heavy I get. They have. So let's get on. Talk about estrogen, Steve, and then we can move on to the oral choices.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Dianabol as an oral shortly. It's one of Mobster's favorite oral steroids, and it's the number one most popular selling oral steroid of all time. And it's still to this day the number one seller of all, believe it or not. A lot of people don't think that, but it is. And here's the thing with Dianabol: the more Dianabol you run, the more aromatization is going to happen. And it's where it's going to aromatize into estrogen in the body. So you want to make sure you're aware of that. Estrogen side effects can include gynecomastia, which are bitch tits. We definitely don't want that, because if you get that, you're going to either have to get it treated, and it may boil down to having surgery. So we don't want to get gyno in the first place. Bloat, water retention, and then the cascading domino effects of water retention, which can be anything from insomnia to high blood pressure, on and on and on. Even red face, people who have red face that you see in the gym, that's like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, you have red face. Well, it's because your blood pressure spikes. So you want to make sure you keep your estrogen under control. Luckily, Geneza Pharma has you covered, because they do have ancillaries, the Aromasin, the Arimidex, the Letro. Those are good things to keep on hand, especially if you're running Dianabol with testosterone. You definitely want to run on AI if you in that situation. So AIs are aromatase inhibitors, and they disable the estrogen conversion from occurring. So that will help keep your estrogen balanced. And you always want to keep your estrogen balanced on cycle. High estrogen is not what we want. So let's get into solo oral options from Geneza Pharma. And I'll start out, I'm going to have you talk about Dianabol, Mobster, because you love Dianabol. You've been using it longer than 99% of people. But I'm going to touch on the first one that Geneza has, and it's M1T. So methyl 1 testosterone, also called 17-AA1 testosterone. So it's the methylated version of steroid 1 testosterone. So this is a one that Geneza Pharma has to offer. And look, this is a very cheap steroid. You don't have to run very much. If you want to run something for 4 weeks and you want to get some really good results and you don't mind some of the side effects, then you can go with this M1T. And it's been, a lot of people consider it one of the, most impactful little steroids as possible. So because the anabolic ratio is really high, like 1,000. So 10 times the anabolic ratio as a straight testosterone. And in some cases, more than twice androgenic as straight testosterone. So it's a really powerful one that you can use solo, and you can go ahead and run, somewhere in between 5 to 10 milligrams a day. And if you feel okay on that, you can jump up to 20 milligrams, and some even go up to 30 milligrams. So, you'd want to run it 2 to 4 weeks. So it's a very, very strong one. But Geneza Pharma has that available for those of you who are interested in using a solo oral. and you just want to see what your body's capable of. Maybe in that situation where Mobster was talking about earlier, where you're doing a 16-week strength program and you've got 3 or 4 weeks left, and you're like, let me take something, boom, let me take M1T, and that will get me there. And then we're going to talk about Superdrol in a little bit, which is very similar to what I just said. But talk about Dianabol Mobster next. Was this the most popular one?
Yeah, as Steve says, I mean, certainly when I first came into the idea of using performance enhancement when I was 37 years of age, after 22 years of training, Debo was not just for me, but for pretty much every user out there, their first ever steroid. And that might not be the case now, but it certainly was then, Steve. I've never had to run it at high numbers, never gone over 50 milligrams, and I've always actually found 30 to 50 milligrams a day has been the absolute sweet spot for me. For me, I'll tell you what I like about Dynamo. Several things, really. Well, number one is I always, certainly back in the day, every single cycle of Dynamo, I would guarantee to put on cycle 10 pounds. Now, of course, some of that was water, but I'll get into why that was actually beneficial for me in a minute. The other part was, and I was sensible enough about this, I would probably keep 5 to 6 pounds of that 10 pounds every single fucking time, Steve. Every single time. Now, that doesn't sound like a crazy amount for some people, but realistically, 2 cycles a year, do that for 2 or 3 years, and you're looking at 5, 6 pounds. So that's £10 a year, £12 a year. 3 years is £36. It's at least £30. And even if it starts to taper off in terms of response, 25, 26, £27 over 3 fucking years is an enormous amount of extra muscle. Now, when I was using it for strength specifically, that £10, including the water, was actually beneficial to me. And I've touched on this in other shows, Steve. I actually want, and again, because of my body weight, even then was starting to creep up to the heavyweight kind of numbers in terms of weight classes and whatever else. Every single competition I've competed in, because of what I was doing, I was an open class lifter, which essentially means there's not really a body weight division for me because I was already quite good at the grip stuff when I started competing grip. So when I was doing other strength training, other things that I wanted to get good on, including the power lifts, the body weight increase, the bloat, the water is actually kind of useful. If my forearm is bloated, if my biceps and my triceps are bloated, so my upper arm and my lower arms bloated, and my chest and my back, when I'm lying down on the bench press and the bar comes down to my chest, my leverage is increased, which means I've got better power just by simply being bigger. Now, of course, the uptake of protein, so more muscle, the fact that I can train with heavier weights is going to make me stronger too. And of course, certain steroids, including Dynamo, have a certain element of being able to the muscle, the fibers, etc., to fire better. So more of the fibers are firing, and so on and so forth. And of course, hopefully, even then, Steve, I'm on some kind of science-based, sensible training protocol that's over time, as it has done, going to increase my strength. Finally, and so that's just that as well. There's also an element, Steve and I have talked about this, it's this kind of element of it's not one of those ones that makes you feel toxic. I'd actually say as a strength enhancement that the methyl 1 test is, it does come with some harsher side effects and can make you feel a little bit toxic. So I would run it for a shorter period of time. With Debo, as Steve and I both know, can actually make you feel kind of good. There's almost a certain, there are trend pumps and VAR pumps that are uncomfortable. M1T might make you feel a little bit toxic. Debo actually makes you kind of feel good. So not only are you kicking ass in the gym, not only are you physically bigger, not only are you going to hopefully, fingers crossed, have 5 or 6 pounds of muscle like I did, or whatever percentage it would be for yourself of muscle to look forward to after the cycle's finished, you're actually going to feel kind of good when you're on Debo, and it's great for the appetite. And I think, Steve, the pump specifically, say compared to say the VAR pump, are fantastic. What's your experience with Dynabol?
Yeah, it was the first steroid I have ever used, and I noticed when I was benching, I was doing 6 reps at the same weight, and then I was about 4 or 5 days into using Dianabol, and instead of being able to do 6 reps, I was doing 8 reps. So that's the quick increase in strength that Dianabol does. Now, it's not the
Yeah,
best oral steroid for strength.
no,
Superdrol is going to be better. Anadrol might even be better. It depends. But Dianabol does a lot of good things. And as Mobster said, the mood enhancement, also, and the appetite increase. So you're not only directly getting stronger on Dianabol, but as Mobster said, you're also gaining mass, which is going to
Yes.
allow you to
And quickly, Steve,
yeah.
quickly. I've said on other shows, I had poor Dynamo and then great Dynamo. And the poor Dynamo, which probably had nothing in it, take that for a week and a half, waiting for some product to arrive. Big mistake, but I don't do that anymore. And nothing happened, nothing happened, nothing happened. Then a legitimate Dynamo turned up. Companies like that we approve now would be a legitimate source, obviously, like Geneza. And from Friday to Monday, I put on 4 pounds, so £1 a day. So the size gains for me, especially Steve. I think even now, if I use Debo now, the size gains. I know that I was on Dynamo and I would gain weight. Even if I didn't gain what I've gained in the past, I would still gain weight relative to where I am now very, very quickly. So
and
maybe
there's a
half a
reason,
pound a
yeah.
day.
And there's a reason there's weight classes in powerlifting.
Yeah.
And it's because the more mass you have, the more weight you're going to do, all things being equal, of course. That,
Yes.
of course, there
Yes.
you can
Yes.
find a 250-pound guy who's not going to be as strong as a 150-pound guy. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you group
All
people in
things
weight
being equal,
classes
yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
give it an even playing field, and let's see who's stronger amongst your similar weights. And that's what Dianabol is all about. And Dianabol gives you that. Now, it's not going to be good if you're trying to make weight. So if you're listening to this and you're in powerlifting competition and you need to make weight, don't run Dianabol. It's not a good option. But if you don't give a shit about your weight, you're just trying to get stronger, and you
Yeah.
don't mind putting on a quick 5 or 10 pounds, then Dianabol would be a good solution for you. Or you could
Absolutely.
be at the bottom of your weight class and be like, you know what, fuck it. Let me move on to maybe the next weight class. I'm tired of trying to make weight every week. I used to be in that situation. You can be like, fuck it. Let me move on to the next weight class. Let me just fucking run Dianabol. And then you'll gain 5 or 10 pounds and be able to excel in the next weight class instead of struggling on the lower weight class. So think about that when you're weight training. Let's move on. You want to move on, Mobster, to Anabar? You want to
Yeah, I move on because Steve knows that the next one is my absolute favourite for strength. I mean, Debo would probably be number two, Steve, in terms of my personal choices and my response to steroids. There are some other excellent choices, but it's just how I personally respond. But the next one, Steve knows I fucking love. And in fact, I'll be very surprised if most of the guys on the forums don't know that I love the next one. So GP Oxan, which is, of course, oxandrolone, and it is basically their version of Anavar. It comes in 10 milligrams. Do I love VAR or do I love VAR? There's no fucking question. For me, the body weight thing, perversely as big as I am, and even if I'm downsized relative to where I've been in the past, at the minute, I'm still well over 300 pounds. I don't need necessarily to be much bigger than I am. You know, don't need to be 400 pounds, don't need to be 350 pounds. Don't mind getting bigger, don't mind at all. But it's not a thing that I need to do specifically. But when I am training for strength, and specifically on a power lift like the bench press, I want to use, if I'm going to use an oral steroid that's going to make me strong. And my go-to, my absolute go-to would be a product like GP Oxan in the 10 milligram. Now, I run Anavar 30 milligrams, but the absolute sweet spot for 95% of you listeners would be 50 milligrams a day. If you've never used it before, go a little bit less. Let me just to give you an example, and especially I'm going to apply my back in the day numbers because I knew absolutely how I would respond on certain particular things. I knew that if I was an off cycle 170 kilogram bench presser, then I was an on cycle 20 kilograms, 44-pound difference bench presser, and that was absolutely guaranteed. So if I can get my bench, for example, to 175, then that 190 becomes 195, which is over 400 fucking pounds. And that starts to get real interesting. Are there any issues with Anavar? Absolutely. The VAR pumps, and especially my first couple of Anavar cycles, Steve, were crazy. I mean, if the Debo pump's pleasurable, you kind of got to be a little bit perverted in you know that this is the reason why you're getting this horrible pump, and you know that the product's working, but at the same time, it's kind of deliberating. You can't. I could do absolutely crazy shit in the gym, Steve, but I couldn't do any kind of kettlebell swings for conditioning. I couldn't walk comfortably into town, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, I know better, and I know, for example, to take taurine, to use an organ protector with a high dose of taurine as part of that product. And again, you can come on the forums and check that out. I would know that. I didn't know that back in the day, but I do now. But in terms of strength, and especially you guys that do have to hit a weight class, as Steve says, you're limited by the amount that you can weigh on the day of a competition. Anavar for me would be a go-to. I never put on loads of size on Anavar. If I had my head on and I was pushing the envelope a little tiny bit, I might, and this is me in more training hard, etc., I might hit an on cycle additional 5 pounds. But my mindset was also, Steve, not to try to stay that body weight when I came off. It wasn't important to me at a particular point. I'd already got to certain particular places in terms of strength, etc. So what I was doing was literally trying to add 5% to my top numbers on the day of a competition. And I was scientific and analytical enough that I would go off and see what everybody else was doing and make sure that I was competitive, that if I wasn't going to win, I was going to be second. And I had that kind of mindset. I knew what their numbers would be. I knew how much they'd improve. And if I could get 5% better, I was going to make that motherfucker sweat, if not kick their ass. So for me, even now, even not competing, even just doing lifts like Steve talked about and I talked about, for myself, Anavar would be my number one strength go-to. I have tried some of the others, and Steve and I will discuss those. Some of you will get, and I know this because I've seen these kind of numbers, absolutely fucking amazing results, better than I do. And that just comes literally down to what my body likes to use versus what your body likes to use. You don't have to try every steroid out there. Enough of us have done that for you that you can work out what works. But at the same time, I know what works for me. It's going to be Debo or Anavar, and absolutely a product like GP Oxide 10 milligram for me would be fucking fabulous. Let's talk about the next one when you're ready.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more thing about Anavar. It doesn't aromatize, so that's one of the big benefits of Anavar is it doesn't aromatize into estrogen. But we talked about water retention though. It can help you obviously get stronger. So not being able to aromatize is one of the things. So that's what makes Anavar even more impressive. It's not making you stronger by filling your muscles up full of water to give you that advantage. And it's not making you hungry, where you're having to eat a lot of food on it to fill up the muscles full of glycogen, which again gives you an advantage when it comes to powerlifting. So it's a very phenomenal steroid, and that's why it costs a little more than some of these other orals. So, but I mean, Geneza Pharma makes it affordable. It used to be, I can remember back in the day, Mobster, Anavar costs a lot of money. Now it's not a lot of money because companies like Geneza Pharma are doing a great job of putting it on the market for a fair price, and you can afford it even as an average Joe like us. So next one we're going to talk about, Mobster, is going to be Anadrol. And Anadrol is one of my personal favorites for mass, and it's also one of my personal favorites for strength. And Anadrol is a very interesting one. So follow this. So it's a DHC derivative, just like Anavar, and it does not aromatize into estrogen like Dianabol will, but it also binds to estrogen receptors. So you'll actually bulk and get massive on Anadrol, and you'll get stronger, but you'll also kind of harden up. So if you've ever seen the physique of someone who's been on Anadrol for 4 or 5 weeks, they're big. You can tell they're bigger, like on their shoulders and their traps. You can tell they're bigger, but you can tell they're like harder. They're not like big and bloated like they would be on Dianabol without using an AI, you see. So it's a very fascinating oral steroid, Anadrol, and it's a very powerful oral steroid, and it's an oral steroid that comes with a lot of side effects, some which are very unpredictable and some that are very hard to figure out, because as I said, it's causing you estrogen related side effects, but then again, it's not because it's aromatizing it to estrogen, it's because it's binding estrogen receptors. So some people have found that they can run Nolvadex, which is a selective estrogen receptor modulator SERM, with Anadrol, and that will help the side effects. So Geneza Pharma has you covered. You want to run like 5 milligrams a day of Nolvadex with the Anadrol, that may help. But what I found with Anadrol is if you're prone to side effects, just don't take Anadrol. For me, I tolerate it well. I can run it 4 or 5 weeks. If you told me, Steve, you got 5 weeks to bulk and get stronger, pick something. I would pick Anadrol because unlike Superdrol, it doesn't make you feel like shit. Okay. It doesn't make you feel great like Dynabol will. And it
No,
doesn't kind of not have, it doesn't have side effects like Anavar doesn't have side effects very much, but it still won't make you feel like shit. So it's kind of in the middle. So for me, it's the one that I would pick, Mobster. If I had like 4 or 5 weeks to get as strong as I can and as big as I can within reason.
I've heard, and I've talked about this on other shows, Steve, as you know, I've heard some great, though, I mean, look, as I said earlier on, there are steroids I respond incredibly well to and others who do not. And Anadrol, annoyingly, because of the stuff I'm about to talk about, I wish I responded in that way. But I've heard stories about people using Anadrol and putting on 20 pounds. And the most I've ever put on any oral steroid has been 10 pounds. And I mentioned it earlier on with the Debo. I've done better than that on injectables. But the idea that I could take an oral steroid, arguably, Steve, and this is what's kind of bizarre sometimes when it comes to it, the majority of times when we're talking about any steroid, we're using amounts that are above and beyond what would be used in medication for medical purposes. Anadrol's, ironically, if you can look this up for yourself, guys, one of the few times that we actually run it there or thereabouts, but typically less than is used for medical purposes. And for medical purposes, for example, sometimes, Steve, it's the milligrams typically per day is 100 milligrams, whereas we would look between 50 and 100 milligrams. 100 milligrams would probably be the maximum. And when you got, as I said, the hyper responder specifically to Anadrol, putting on 20 pounds, it's fucking amazing. I think the only side effect in that particular regard, Steve, never mind anything else, that's almost too much too quick. And as bad as the VAR pumps would be, the idea that I'm suddenly, and I have done this on Sustain Decker, put on 20 pounds in a matter of weeks is uncomfortable. It's just physically uncomfortable. It's okay in the gym. It's absolutely fucking fantastic in the gym. But it's walking up and down stairs with the equivalent of a bag of shopping, groceries, on your body every fucking day till you come off cycle. It's a little bit uncomfortable. But again, if you respond well to Anadrol, you will fucking love it. It will be your number one choice. And like Steve says, if you do respond like that and you do have to get big real quick, like Steve said, then for me, if you had that response, Anadrol every single fucking time. I would probably not try to, especially if I was going to put on that kind of body weight, Steve. I wouldn't run it for a long period of time. If it was a little tiny bit milder, I might run it a little bit longer, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. But I think it's for some people such a quick gainer, such a quick response that I wouldn't want to run it for 6, 7, 8 weeks because I think I'd feel uncomfortable. But again, I don't have to make weight. I'm too fucking heavy right now for any weight class there is. Of all the weight classes I can think of in any federation, I'm too heavy. I'm over 140 kilos. I'm over 125 kilos. I think one federation now, the top weight is 110 kilos. I'm bigger than all those numbers. So I don't have to make weight. And if I responded, then boom, give me some Oxy, blow me the fuck up because I'm going to absolutely kill it. So yeah, GP Oxy, 50 milligram products. Price is sensible, Steve, for what it is. And again, if you know that you're going to respond and you don't have to worry too much about gaining so much size, then absolutely this would be a great choice for you. Let's move on to the next one, Steve. We've already mentioned it. And again, I'll do a quick bit of history. So GP Superdrol, 10 milligrams. What is the issue with Superdrol? It's a steroid. The only issue in my particular mind, specific to this particular point, Steve, is that it used to be included in the products that you could buy over the counter when pro hormones were available over the counter. But the reality of not just Superdrol, but some of those pro hormones is they were steroid in everything but name, and especially product name. The reality is that Superdrol is a steroid. There's further issues, and it is absolutely a fantastic drug for strength. So it's great for powerlifting again. It's probably that it is unlike we've given you a couple of options where you're going to feel great. You're also going to struggle perhaps with increased body weight or you'll feel the effect of the drug in a toxic way. Superdrol has that kind of sense of pushing your body so hard, fantastic for strength, fantastic for size, that in order for it to do that, it makes you feel kind of toxic. It makes you feel a little bit out of sorts. But again, we are, as I said in the pre-show to Steve, if you know how you're going to feel, if you know what the negatives and the positives are, then you know I'm going to take it. This is what's going to happen. But do I want to get stronger? Is there a drug out there that suits me? Is there an option from Geneza that's going to suit me and give me that strength and give me that size? Then we're giving you those choices. So Supertrol, strength, yes. Size, yes. But what's your dosage? What would you run it dosage-wise, Steve, if you were looking to run Supertrol?
Yeah, so I used Super Droll back in the day. Stuff makes you feel like absolute shit. Very toxic in the body, hits your liver like crazy. So just be warned. I've ran it anywhere from 10 to 40 milligrams a day. Once you get up to 40 milligrams a day, it's like death. Okay. You feel like absolute shit. 30 milligrams a day, you still feel like shit, but it's, you're like able to survive. 20 milligrams a day, you feel like shit, but it's less side effects. So really, it's also the duration of running it. The longer you stay on it, the more and more you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna be fatigued. You're gonna have insomnia. You're gonna just be dragging on this stuff. But then when you're in the gym, you feel like a maniac on this stuff. It's gonna make you strong as fuck in a short amount of time. So if you told me powerlifting, we're talking about powerlifting, okay? We're not talking about mass, we're talking about powerlifting. If you want something and you've got like 2 or 3 weeks where your competition is coming up and you want something that's going to make you strong as fuck in that 2 or 3 weeks, then Super Droll is going to be the one to pick. But it's going to hammer your health numbers. So if you have bad blood pressure, bad cholesterol, bad liver, bad kidneys, and you run this shit, it's going to make you really, really in bad shape. You'll be pissing out like dark urine on this stuff. It's very toxic, very, very toxic. So you want to make sure you double your support supplements on this stuff. And really, I will never touch the stuff again. But like a lot of you out there who've never used it before and you're into powerlifting, it's worth trying. It's worth trying. And Geneza Pharma Super Droll is the cleanest that you're going to find, even though it's a toxic as hell steroid. And as Mobster said earlier, it used to be sold as a designer steroid. There was a loophole, and they would
Yeah,
basically sell it as other things like Beastrol, for example, and they'd sell over the
yeah,
counter. You could buy it with a credit card. So you had teenagers going online and buying this stuff and having it delivered
yeah,
to their house, but they didn't
yeah.
know how toxic it
Exactly,
was.
Steve. Yeah.
And this
They
is
they weren't they weren't they said because it was over the can it's got to be safe. And the mistake was it was a steroid, which they wasn't treating as a steroid. So they wasn't using ancillaries. They wasn't thinking about their liver numbers. They wasn't getting blood tests. And we saw examples back in the day. You don't see them anymore because people do know what's what of jaundiced eyes and terrible liver values and so on and so forth. Mar and Pa supplement stores were knocking this stuff out. You can still find your place. So let's very briefly, Steve, and this is more of a power drug, which is GB Turan, 10 milligrams, which is Turanabol in all but name. Not a bulker and not a powerlifting drug per se. But Steve and I had a quick chat in the pre-show, and I actually agreed with him. When we talked about T-Bowl, it's specifically created for athletes competing in the Olympic Games, etc., or that kind of in athletics, shot putting, javelin, discus, and so on and so forth. They couldn't be the size of houses with issues that was causing in the media at the time, back in the day. So Stasi plan, Eastern European, East German, with Russian support, created Serenabol. And what Serenabol does, and the reasons why we're including it here, is it enables you to be athletically powerful. What does that mean? Explosive power. Now, certain lifts are fast, certain lifts are slow. So as an example, I'll use the bench press again very quickly, Steve. The faster you can move the fucking bar, the stronger you are. And not only that, relative to the side effects, minimal on T-Bowl, arguably the guru PED of choice, not something that's going to put tons of mess on you. In fact, quite the opposite, because you're coming down from with a big bloated mess. That's what was happening back in the day, and so on and so forth. So again, reasonably priced. don't have to run loads. I think Steve and I have talked about this before. I'm sure I'll be speaking for Steve if I said 30 milligrams a day is fine. And arguably, again, super, super strong. So let's talk about why we like Geneza, Steve. I'll let you start.
So Geneza Pharma, look, they're one of the top selling brands in the world. And why is that? Is because here's the key. And if you read books on entrepreneurship and sales and all this stuff, one of the top tips that people say is the quality of what you're selling, because it's not about just making one sale. It's about continuously making the sale over and over. And this is why supplement companies out there, they open up their business, they market the crap out of it, they make sales, and then they die off because their product is shit and people don't keep coming back. They'll use it once, they'll either dispute it on their credit card because it was garbage, or they just won't even order again. So to have a successful product, you've got to keep selling it over and over. You got to have people keep coming back. And that's what Geneza Pharma does. And that's why they've been able to build it up. So that should give you the indicator right there that you're dealing with a quality product. So when you buy any of these orals that we talked about, the Anadrol, the Anavar, the Superdrol, the Dianabol, any of them that we've talked about, the M1T, the T-Bol, you know you're getting what you order. You know that the dosing is correct. You're trying to run 30 milligrams of Dianabol. It's not overdose and it's not underdosed. It's what they claim. And that's important. And that's why people keep coming back to Geneza Pharma. This is why Mobster and I have been using Geneza Pharma for 12 or 15 years even now. And this is why they're one of the top selling brands, because people trust them. They keep going back. It's just like the supermarket or store you like, or the shoes that you like, the brand you like. You buy shoes. I like to buy Nike shoes. Why? Because I go in there, I can buy them. I can go to the factory store, buy a good quality Nike shoe for $40, $50, $60. And I know that I can run in them and I can work out in them. They're not going to bother my feet. They're not going to give my feet blisters. I know they're going to be comfortable. I know they're going to give me support. And I keep going back. Now, one day, if Nike says, you know what, we're going to stop making quality shoes, and I start getting blisters and I start getting in pain, they're going to lose me as a customer. But Nike, obviously, they've grown for a reason. The same thing with Geneza Pharma. They keep growing and gaining customers, and the same customers keep coming back. And that's how you build a successful business. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to believe in your product and you need to sell the product. So Mobster and I, we trust Geneza Pharma to put in our bodies. We trust these orals to put in our bodies. These are serious hormones. This is not the time to play jokes. You're not going here and buying a birthday cake, okay? This is something serious that has serious side effects. So you need to make sure what you put in your body is what you think it is. And it's going to give you. Now, if you go and buy Anavar from another source and it's really Dianabol, and you end up with gynecomastia, now you got to pay $12,000 to have surgery. How does that make any sense? Just because you want to save a few bucks and go with a cheaper source, see a cheaper brand, to me, it doesn't make sense. So sales is important when it comes to bringing back your customers and making them happy. So Geneza Pharma, they not only have great products, they also have great shipping. They have great customer service. So that's very, very important. And they also make it really easy to place an order, Mobster. You go and you place an order, you get an email notification. They tell you how to pay. You pay. And then a few days later, they ship it. And it's and it's that simple. It doesn't need to be complicated.
Yeah, I mean, one of my things, Steve, is they are sold by a bunch of resellers, and the resellers will only sell solid ass brands that are recognized in the marketplace. Listen, Steve and I are biased. We've tried this product. We know how we feel, and we tell you the results that we've had. So one of my recommendations is, okay, listen to what we're saying and take our advice for the day. But then go off on a bunch of other forums and tell me that Geneza are not given a thumbs up on the other forums too. So it's not a question of, oh, this forum or that forum. No, multiple forums, not just ones that Steve and I are on giving you information on, but everywhere Geneza is recognized as a solid ass brand. We know that the product's been tested in-house. It's been independently tested by members of forums that we know that have spent their own money to find out if this product's any good. And again, like Steve said, just for me, one of my sort of how would I choose a lab would come down to the length of time that they've been in the marketplace producing solid product. So what are we looking at? The minimum of 10 years. I think Geneza's up there around the 20-year mark, Steve. I might be wrong, but that's the way that I want to look at that product. Look, end of the day, these are our choice of all the steroids that are going to make you stronger for powerlifting. They're going to give you that power for powerlifting. And if you use them the way that we suggested, please come onto the forums and ask questions about that kind of protocol. Get some more detail from us. Let us know what you think in the comments below, because we're always interested in that. Have you tried GP products? Did you use them for powerlifting? What kind of results you got? How much stronger did you get using the products that we discussed today? Because that's the sort of stuff that we want to know. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It's our view based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.